Hey guys, Carl Cooper here with On the Black, and I am joined on the phone by Jonathan Bentz, who runs FantasyBaseballDugout.com. How you doing, Jonathan?
Hey man, it's nice in spite of the flood that we're suffering here in Pennsylvania to be able to join you this evening.
Yeah,
but the internet's not being very friendly tonight.
Yeah, it's raining pretty bad here in Jersey too, so yeah, the connection's a little shaky on my end as well. So, before we get into it, why don't you just give everybody a little idea of who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm Jonathan Bentz. Typically in the internet, in the sports blogger world, I go by Beezy, actually. And I'm one of the co-bloggers at FantasyBaseballDugout.com. We're one of the top ranking fantasy baseball websites on the web. And at our site, you can find all kinds of rankings, news, advice, and tips to win your league. Get a different perspective on fantasy baseball, more about the game itself, as opposed to just reviews of people in the minor leagues and finding that one guy who's gonna be your sleeper. We try to take a little bit different look at it, and just kind of give you the advice, the help you need to win your league.
And you guys also post some interesting and nice picks from time to time too.
Yes, we do. We have a contest. We have a contest every year that brings the rubberneckers of the internet over to our site to take a look at the lives of baseball players and let us know, which one they think is the best, their favorite, the most popular.
I hear ya. All right, so help me out here, Jonathan. I'm in 4 fantasy leagues this year, and your league that you're running happens to be one of them that I'm in. And as a Mets fan, I want a hometown guy. So who's the number one New York Met from a fantasy perspective?
I don't think it's going to be any surprise that it comes from either the shortstop position or the third base position. Now, a lot of people would kind of say it's toss-up, considering the underwhelming production and some of the injury of those two players at those positions. But looking at fantasy production, my money for a Mets player is on Jose Reyes. The shortstop position is a little bit shallower than, actually it's a lot shallower than the third base position where David Wright's the man. On that side of New York, at least, he's the man. And my money for fantasy baseball on the Mets would be on Jose Reyes.
Gotcha. Now, a draft tool that I use has Carlos Beltran currently ranked 161st. Now, he's dealing with some knee injuries. He's had some trouble in the past with his health and stuff like that. A few years back, he was arguably the best all-around center fielder in baseball. What do you think about Beltran this year from a fantasy perspective? Do you think he can be a starter on a strong team, or is he more of a backup guy now?
Well, he's definitely at the back end of the outfield. I don't think there's a lot of argument there as the season starts. Now, if Beltran is 100% healthy, he was argued at the top. I actually took him in the first round of the draft several years ago. The thing with Beltran is that he has the pedigree, if he's healthy, of hitting 20 home runs and stealing 20 bases, even in Citi Field. So, could he be a value pick at 164? Yeah, probably, but you need to make sure that your outfield is set. I wouldn't bet on him being an everyday starter at this point. Certainly, we all hope that he proves me wrong, but that he's more of that you have an insurance policy if you are going to take Carlos Beltran.
Gotcha. Now, is there anyone on this Mets roster that kind of stands out to you that could be a surprise this year? I know that people are probably going to be low on Jason Bay because of the year he had last year. Ike Davis is an up-and-coming guy. Other guys that could have good seasons potentially are guys like R.A. Dickey and Capuano and maybe Chris Young. Anyone you see that could be a surprise from a fantasy baseball perspective on this team?
Well, I'll tell you what. You asked me that same question last year.
Yep.
And I had the cojones to say Oliver Perez.
Do you have the cojones to say that again?
No, I do not. No, I do not. This year, though, I actually this morning was fooling around on this little website called Facebook. I think it's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I've heard of it before.
Yeah, you've heard of it?
Yeah, once or twice.
And Yahoo is actually running. This is a little bit of an FYI for your listeners for all of your listeners who have a Facebook profile. The Yahoo is actually running a salary cap game on Facebook this year for fantasy baseball. And when I was putting my roster together, one of the starters that I selected at a bargain price of $5 million on a budget, on a Yankee-sized budget of $300 million, was Chris Young. So, I remember the Chris Young of a couple of years ago, before, he got conked in the head by the baseball and had some injury trouble. And he was a great pitcher for San Diego. Let's not forget. This guy, there's no question that he's had injury problems the last couple of years. But I kind of look for him to be a player you can get really late in your draft and get a lot of value out of if he's healthy. I mean, he's pitching in a relatively friendly park for pitchers. He's still in the National League. The pitchers do a lot better in the National League than they do in the American League. So I would look for him to have a good season if he can stay on the mound.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting, and that's it's interesting because that is, in my opinion, the theme for the Mets this year. Just talking baseball in general, because they've got a lot of guys, if healthy, if they do that, and I think Young was a good signing, so hopefully he will be healthy, and maybe he will be that surprise this year. So.
Yeah, I think he certainly has the potential to be a value signing and a value pick in fantasy baseball. I mean, R.A. Dickey definitely snuck up on some people last year, but I think he probably isn't as likely to have that surprise factor that he had last year. So I think when you're looking at least at Mets pitchers, which certainly isn't, it's not the most dependable rotation out there.
Right.
But when you look at their rotation, they have some names like if it was 2007 or 2006, you'd be like, wow, that's the best rotation in the majors. But it's 2011 now.
Right.
What we're looking at right now with Chris Young, I think he's probably the one that could emerge from a fantasy perspective and from a real world perspective too, and some quality if he's able to stay out there.
Right. Okay, cool. And lastly, I know you are running a contest, the Super Smack Talk Awards over at Fantasy Baseball Dugout. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about that?
Okay, well, I think a lot of people that watch you probably also watch this little 4-letter network that everybody has on their television. And they run ads for their fantasy baseball game. And last year, their advertising campaign for it, I thought was very well done. And I don't know if everybody remembers the one commercial where the guy was like speed in his, he was like speed braining, trying to figure out who to pick. And he ended up picking a pitcher like Hideki Kuroda. He's like Kuroda from the Dodgers. And his buddies all razzed him for picking a pitcher for the 7th straight round or something like that. And that's kind of, I don't know if you remember that commercial or if your viewers remember that commercial, but that commercial kind of spawned this contest. The people at Skype reached out to me and said, hey, we have this really cool group video calling feature, and we know a lot of fantasy baseball people do their drafts on the web. Wouldn't it be great if we help you make that possible for some of the online community that does fantasy baseball drafts online. So we're running this Super Smack Talk Awards contest. Now, what you need to do is send an email to us here, to us at fantasybaseball.com, and basically just tell us a story about the best one-liner, the best zinger you've ever delivered during a fantasy baseball draft. Your smack talk.
Right.
Maybe you pick on a guy for drafting a pitcher for the 7th round in a row. Maybe I think everybody has the homer in their league, right? Maybe the guy who picks too many Mets or too many Marlins or Nats or whatever. And you rather that guy when he takes Ian Desmond in the 4th round of the draft. So, it's that kind of stuff. Just send us your best smack talk, and we have about $100 in prizes for three selected winners, the best storytellers, to get some cool prizes from Skype.
Cool. It definitely sounds interesting. And again, I'm in 4 drafts, so I might have to enter this contest myself.
Well, we definitely the people at Skype have been really cool with us here in the last couple of weeks, and we'll have the link on your site for people to be able to click over and check out the contest. Now, I will say that it does run through the end of the weekend, so you're the On the Black community, the On the Black listeners are kind of getting in on the back end, but we definitely still have some opportunity, and the prizes are pretty cool. It's an HD webcam and a 3-month voucher for group video chat on Skype.
Nice, yeah, and I'm a big fan of Skype. I use it for pretty much all of my video chats, and I've been looking at that group chat, so that might be pretty nice.
Yeah, and it's to be able to use it for 3 months. Of course, Fantasy Baseball Dugout, we would love for people to use it during their actual draft. But with family and friends spread out across the country, it's definitely possible to share some other moments on Skype as well.
Right. Well, hey, Jonathan, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to chat with me about some fantasy baseball. We've done this chat a few times, and we've got to meet up in person one of these days.
No doubt. The next time I'm in northern New Jersey or I'm in the city, I'm hitting you up, brother. No doubt about it.
All right, cool. And for those of you out there listening, please be sure to check out Jonathan over at fantasybaseballdugout.com. Thanks, John.